Why bother writing when the world is falling apart around you? The couple weeks ago, it's taken me a few weeks to kind of process all of this. I was watching the news, and I mean, we've been through so much already with the pandemic and being in lockdown, and watching. I mean, it's been years already that we've been watching, all these atrocities happening around the world, and human rights being taken away from women and children, and the LGBTQ plus community, and it's all devastating. And I know that I'm coming from a position of privilege, and I can do something about it. And I was watching the Russia. I was watching Russia invade Ukraine, and I was seeing them how they bombed this nuclear plant, and I looked it up on Google Maps, and I was like, oh, that's where my family had come from. My dad's grandparents had immigrated from Ukraine, from that area, and I really wanted to talk to my dad about it because he could understand. And and I was sitting there going, why bother writing when all of this is happening and so much destruction is happening, and donating and all that stuff, just it doesn't seem like it's enough. And I can't talk to my dad. He passed away in October from cancer. And I remembered the last conversation that we had, which was a few days before he passed. And he said something to me. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about. But he asked me something. And I said, I don't know. I have to think about it. And he said to me, quote, and I don't know who the author was. I've tried to look it up, but there are many different authors that have said this. And it is this: I don't know what I think until I have written. And for me, that's very much the same thing. I write to process things in the world around me and understand myself. And I was thinking about that as I was wishing I could talk to my dad about what was happening in Ukraine. And I was thinking about not being able to write at this point in time because, what was the point? And there are three motivators when it comes to writing: money, connection, and influence. I don't know what I think until I've written. That is influence. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today in this short video. If we haven't met before, I am Sherry, your novel writing coach, and I'd love to work with writers just like you to unlock your creative genius so that you can grow your readership, write the story you want to write, and level up your publishing game without stress, imposter syndrome, or self-doubt. So what do I mean by influence? Well, usually, when we think about influence right now, we think about the social media influencers, oh, I'm wearing this shirt from such and such a designer or store or whatever, go buy it. And of course, that is influencing us to buy something. But when it comes to writing, there's three ways that I look at influence. It is helping us understand ourselves and our world around us. It is helping us understand other people's perspectives. And it is influencing our reader, so opening their hearts and their minds. So the first one, helping us understand ourselves and our world around us. The first novel I ever wrote was, my family comes from Ukraine and southern Russia. I am Russian Mennonite. Obviously, no, I don't wear the bonnet. I'm totally, we can have a whole other discussion about Mennonite history. But it was something that I wanted to understand. I wanted to understand why my family came here. My dad's family came in the 1870s, and my mom's family came in the 1920s for very different reasons. And I wanted to understand it, and I wanted to understand their faith and how they could come here, why they would come here, why they would uproot everything. Why in the middle of such turmoil, especially in the 1920s, that was during the Russian Revolution, they came here and what they sacrificed to come here. And so I wrote a romance novel-ish, I don't know, about that so that I could understand my family and where I come from. The second one is to help understand other people's perspectives. And so the second novel I wrote, we won't talk about what happened to the first one today. The second novel I wrote, that one was never meant to be in the public eye. That was just for myself. And so the first novel I wrote, very Christian, inspirational, well, I don't know, but very clean. It was very, very clean. The second one I wrote, I was writing about Northern Ireland. It was my newest passion. And still is. But I was writing, and my characters were, because so much of what you read about Northern Ireland is from the Catholic perspective. And I wanted to understand the Protestant perspective, the working class Protestant, why they would join the paramilitaries and all that kind of stuff. And my main character, Melanie, she swore like a sailor and was a chain smoker. And I wasn't big on swearing at the time, but, and I wanted to understand because I could not, it was a perspective I didn't understand, and I wanted to. And so I wrote, and I did my research, and I learned all kinds of things, and it opened me up to a different way of thinking. Which brings me to the third one, which is the main one, I think that, so the first two, to understand ourselves, to understand the world around us, to understand other perspectives, is very helpful. And it's a very personal reason for writing. And it's a very important reason that we should be writing right now, especially right now, to understand these times that we're living in and to help us process everything. The third one is to influence other people, to open up their minds. Normally we think now, again, of things like journalism or social media where people are posting things to persuade your opinions. But I was at a conference a few years ago, and I was telling someone that I write novels, and she said, "Oh, I don't read fiction. Why should I read fiction?" And the reason people read fiction, whether it is to escape or reading fiction opens up our minds. It allows us to see the world from other points of view. If it's to escape, it helps people escape because they need a break from what's going on. So, for example, let's look at Lord of the Rings. One of my favorites. Tolkien talks about environmentalism. He talks about the difficulties of war. He talks about burden of, carrying the world on your shoulders. Let's talk about Twilight. Love. It can open you up to new perspectives on love, right or wrong. Just because it's written doesn't mean you have to agree with it. And sometimes writers write things so that you can question what they're saying is true. Best example of that is probably the book Lolita. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't read a whole lot of that one or others, but you go, okay, but this guy's like a total pedo. That's wrong. And so you can question things. And that is the benefit of writing. That is the benefit of what we do as writers, to put our words out into the world. And so I don't know what I think until I've written. And so that for me is the main reason I need to write right now. But I also need to write so that I can put my words and my perspective and other people's perspectives out into the world so that it can reach other people and maybe change some minds. Did with Uncle Tom's Cabin. As much flack as that gets in certain communities because Uncle Tom is seen as the one who, keeps his own people enslaved. It actually did a lot of good to turn people against slavery, a lot of white people. The same could probably also be said about the book Black Like Me, written by a white guy who in the 60s decided to take certain tanning medication to turn his skin darker so he could live for a couple weeks as a black person to understand their experience, and then wrote about it because I guess we can't believe black people. Again, not getting into that, but because at that time, white people could not listen to black people and understand, it took a white person doing it to help them see it. Hopefully, not always, but hopefully things are starting to change. But that is just an example of how what we write can influence people. So it doesn't matter what you write, just keep writing. In this time, help you process what you're going through, help you process what is happening around you, give you other perspectives, and hopefully also influence others to keep writing. Thank you so much for joining me. Keep writing, and I hope you can take a break, take a deep breath. Definitely go out in the streets, protest if you need to, donate, help the people of Ukraine, help the people around you, find an organization, volunteer, but also keep writing. Until next time, happy writing.